we're going to look at the worst part of growing old. This is about a monster hunter that's grown old, and she's trying to figure out her way forward. This one is an edit, so it's already written, so it should go through more smoothly. But as I come across errors, I'll fix those as I go, and if I need to make bigger changes, I'll talk about those as we go through. So, The Worst Part of Growing Old by Jay Wilburn. Patty Anders leaned on her cane with one shaking hand and leaned on the glass of the picture window with the other. I know I heard something this time. As she smeared her clean window, there was no one in the room to agree or deny what she said, or to agree or deny. I think that's right. I was going to put a preposition in there, but I don't think it helps. What she said or what she thought she heard. Okay, growing old sucked. That's how the kids would say it, she thought. Who the hell knew anymore? Okay, that needs to be a question mark. Pardon me there. Alright. They changed their cool phrases so often it was like they spoke another language every month. Patty wasn't even sure the word cool was cool anymore. She made her way from the window that would now need cleaning. Again, you couldn't tell people you were hearing things once you were old, because not only would they not believe, they were liable to lock you up and pump you full of meds that made you crazy if you weren't already. Every med she took came with a new set of problems. The commercials for them that played every time she watched Wheel and Jeopardy were longer on the side effects than what the med was supposed to fix. They had more side effect than effect. All right, let me make that plural. More side effects than effect. All right. Looks good. Then your doctor puts you on more meds for that. By the end, your meds made up a meal by themselves, and you were too wound up. Okay, I think that's right. Too wound up in effects and side effects to know what your real problems were anymore. As she entered the kitchen, she grumbled, "Hell, I've outlived a dozen doctors already. Maybe they should be taking advice from me rather than the other way around." Let me add a missing word in there. All right. Again, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. She laughed a little at her own joke, but she might as well, as there was no one in the kitchen to do it for her. Patty took a swallow of her coffee and found it cold. She hadn't forgotten. Her mind was as sharp as it ever was. It just took so damn long to walk anywhere anymore, even her own house. She carefully shuffled over to another part of the counter and poured herself a warm-up. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Of course, I need to fix that. I had a dropped letter. Her shaking hand sloshed a little of it. Everything that spilled was plenty hot. She took a careful sip, letting more errant coffee drip from the sides of the mug into the puddle on the counter she'd created. Let's say that sounds a little confusing. Let's say the puddle she created on the counter. Otherwise, it sounds like maybe she created the counter, and that's not really what I'm trying to say. Make it as clear as I can. The sugar and cream mix was off again. She was too tired to fix it. Getting old meant being impatient with not getting things your way, but also not having the energy to fix it every time, even when you had the option. She walked away and from her mug and the coffee puddle because she didn't trust herself to carry the mug down the stairs without spilling it on herself. The shit will be cold again by the time I get back up. I might as well get into one of those ridiculous iced coffees the kids like to spend so much money on. She left her cane at the top of the basement stairs and used her hands on the railings to make her way down one careful step at a time. All I need is to fall down these steps to the concrete floor. You guys would love to see me in that pickle, wouldn't you? There were some hisses and growls down below in response to her quip. At the foot of the basement stairs, she flipped on a row of several switches, bringing up lights all the way. I said wall here. All the way down the concrete corridor, much bigger than the house above. Several of the creatures in their glass enclosures screamed as the lights flickered on above and around them. They were mostly nocturnal. A few of them had lethal reactions to sunlight. Others hated any light at all. They'd lived, though. Patty was getting on in years and needed the light to see. "I'll turn it off when I'm done. Cool your tits, all of you." She opened the warmer and took out a chunk of meat that steamed from the metal It doesn't need to be from. I need to say on here. A chunk of meat that steamed on the metal table where she sat it. As it cooled just a little, she took another slab from the freezer and tossed it into the warmer for tomorrow, not from tomorrow. Let me fix that. All right. As the smell of the warm flesh entered their cells, the monsters started hooting and howling. It sounded like a real zoo down here. All right, let me fix that. Good enough. Shut up, she yelled, but wasn't sure she could be heard anymore. It's still going to be warmer than my coffee when I get it to you. She took up a cleaver and cut the slabs into sections with one loud chop after another. The smaller chunks rolled away from each other with split bone showing on both sides. Her fingers wrapped around the cleaver's handle ached. I only put commas there. I think that would make that clear. All right. I don't think that's where they're supposed to go, but I think it makes the sentence flow right. Her fingers ached more and more at the knuckles as she continued to chop. That was another price of waking up breathing too many mornings in a row. As she finished and lifted the warm, bloody pieces in her apron, Patty called out into the wall of noise. Bet you guys wish you'd met me now instead of when I first caught you, don't you? The first cell held a beast with a spider's body and eyes, but too many legs, pincers, and stingers off the back. It was bigger than those jacked up trucks the redneck boys drove up and down the roads too fast. As she dumped 2 pieces of meat and bones through the hatch, the spider thing rushed forward, scattering the bones it had collected in a heap at the back of its enclosure. It wouldn't let Patty clean those up. I need to feed you less, she said as the monster slurped the meat off the bones. You just keep growing. The spider thing screeched at her. Patty thought about the noise she had heard outside more than once, but then she moved on. The minotaur next door pounded its human fists against the plastic walls. It huffed out a smear of mist from its bullhead nostrils. Patty, thought, I need to fix that. Little typo. Patty thought about the smeared window upstairs as she dropped in one chunk of meat for him. He was already pounding on the plastic wall for more as he was still eating what she gave him, never satisfied. She moved on. The white vampiric mutation scampered up and around the walls. Its yellow eyes bled purple onto its pure white flesh. It tried to spread its leathery wings, but didn't have room. Patty didn't feel the least bit sorry, not after all the lives it had taken. It folded back its white, pointed ears and showed her its sharp fangs. Patty found the bloodiest piece and dumped it in. The vampire thing fell to the floor and drove its fangs in, sucking off the fluid it could find. She huffed at the creature and moved on. Wonder if all those teen fans would still be enamored if they saw what vampires could become. Patty wasn't looking forward to clearing that meat out of the pale monster's cell before it rotted, but that was the price of keeping one alive in order to drain its venom. She made her way, I left out a word here, made her way down the basement to the end and back up, feeding every monstrosity she had kept alive for one reason or another. Taking a moment to catch her breath, she turned out the lights. A few of the creatures who had adjusted to the light now gave out whines. Eat well and sleep tight, you bastards. She made her way up the stairs even more slowly than she had gone down. Patty tried not to think about how soon she would need to go back to clean the cages. That was its own tiring ordeal itself. Being old meant the next unpleasant chore always seemed to come up quicker and quicker. At the top of the stairs, she closed the door behind her and reached for her cane, only to discover she had forgotten to lean it by the door when she went down. That was another problem with getting old. You forgot to... She paused. The puddle of spilled coffee had spread out on the counter and onto the floor. There were shards of her mug and the glass pot. Patty swallowed and spoke up with more courage than she felt. Who's here? The screeching she knew she had heard earlier now filled her house as the monster flew toward her from the living room. It lifted her in the air and swept her along the kitchen wall. The fabric wall calendar from 2 years ago ripped off its nail. Her elbow knocked over 3 of her commemorative plates. She saw Elvis shatter in the spilled coffee before she flew across the room. Fortunately, Patty landed on a couch in a plume of dust that danced and sparkled through the air. The beast rose above her, and Patty recognized a monster she had hunted and battled a dozen times over the decades. She had nothing like this creature in her menagerie downstairs. Its head was the skull bone of a cow or a horse. It wasn't really either of those things, but those were the closest comparisons. Let's say comparisons. Ragged flesh formed frills around the thick neck under the exposed skull bone. Its body was a hulking shape of muscle covered in mangy fur. The smell was like that of an open sewer. Patty was surprised she hadn't smelled the thing coming before she heard it. "I'm surprised I didn't smell you coming before." The Helshi monster gave another shrill shriek and lifted Patty's own cane as it charged the couch. Patty lifted the whole coffee table and deflected the blows from the cane intended for her head. Patty swung the table low and cracked one of the Helshi's fat knees. The beast went down in a heap, and Patty took up her discarded cane as she limped toward the kitchen again, holding her lower back. The Helshi excised herself from under the table and flew at Patty's back. Patty sidestepped, and the Helshi raked its bony claws down the wall, shredding the flowered wallpaper and scattering several of Patty's figurines. Thank you for the follows, guys. I appreciate it. I see 2 of you did. I should have mentioned that earlier, so thank you so much. Patty limped on. Patty swung around with an long ivory cross with unchristian runes engraved over its surface. The Helshi broke its fangs on the symbol and recoiled a little. It was only a little, though. Patty hobbled backward, and the Helshi followed. "It's a real shame those are going to grow back," the Helshi screamed in response. It kept coming at her, and Patty poked at it with the tip of her cane and the bulk of the modified cross. It only bought her a few inches of breathing room as they crossed deeper into the house. "You don't hate these crosses quite as much as your vampire friend. That's a real shame." The Helshi tried to circle one way and then the other. It gave a low, rolling growl from deep in its throat that reminded Patty of an angry old cat. Patty didn't have a cat. She was working real hard not to become the crazy cat lady on her block. Finally, the Helshi lunged. Patty held her cane up sideways, dropping the cross on the TV room carpet. Unfortunately, the fangs that had already sprouted back into those terrible jaws. It clamped down twice on the cane until the thing came apart in Patty's hands in 2 pieces. Clamp down. I guess that's fine. The Helshi roared its victory and came in for the hill. Come on, Jay. Came in for the kill. See, that typo would have been embarrassing if a bunch of people saw it live on stream. Patty had taken the brief lull to grab an urn off her mantle and threw the ashes into the monster's bony face. It thrashed from side to side and screamed higher pitched than Patty had ever heard, even out in the deep deserts where she first hunted this abomination. Patty set the urn aside and whispered, "Sorry, Jacob, but I appreciate your help." Okay. Taking up the 2 pieces of her cane, she stabbed both needles hidden inside into the flesh of the Helshi. The creature went down screaming, but it did finally go down and eventually fell still and silent. Patty knew her back was going to hurt, but it was up to her to finish this job. All right, let me make that centered. All right, scene break. The Helshi woke in the bright light. It leapt to its feet and tried to run at Patty Anders, but smashed into the plastic wall of its enclosure and fell to its back. The other monster imprisoned in the basement gave the other monsters, that needs to be plural. All right. The other monsters imprisoned in the basement gave out their noisy cries. The Helshi's fangs tumbled away into the corners. The creature returned to its feet and started clawing at the plastic walls as it screamed over and over. Patty walked away slowly, turned out the lights, climbed the stairs, closed the door, stuffed a towel under the edge to cut off some of that screaming, took 2 extra strength Tylenol, and laid down for bed early. "I'm going to be stiff as hell in the morning," she declared to the empty bedroom. There was no one in there to agree, but it was true. She finally caught the Helshi after all these years. She supposed the thing had hunted her in the end, but caught was caught, and that screaming bitch is caught. Patty smiled as she slowly drifted off to sleep.